My chosen topic is abortion access in Texas. Specifically, the Texas Heartbeat Act is the most important issue for Texas since it directly inflicts upon a person's right to autonomy, the right to healthcare access, and puts people at adverse physical and mental health risks. The Texas Heartbeat Act bans abortions after the detection of embryonic or fetal cardiac activity, which normally occurs after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Texas also implemented a trigger law or a law passed by a legislative body only after a certain thing happens that criminalizes abortion when Roe v. Wade was successfully overruled. So let's address the core issues and challenges surrounding abortion access and the Texas Heartbeat Act. The first problem with the Texas Heartbeat Act is that it restricts a person's right to autonomy. Specifically, banning abortion forces the pregnant person to use their body to carry a fetus to birth. This leaves the pregnant person with no choice in choosing what they want done to their body. The solution to this problem is to allow access to abortion after 6 weeks. More specifically, abortion should be allowed until a fetus becomes viable, which is around 24 to 28 weeks after conception. This abortion range was what was stated in the Roe v. Wade case. A counter-argument often used for the idea that the pregnant person has a right to autonomy is that the right to life of the unborn fetus outweighs the right of autonomy of the pregnant person. My response is that the fetus cannot live outside the womb and relies on the pregnant person to continue life. Thus, the pregnant person's right to autonomy outweighs a fetus's right to life. The second problem with the Texas Heartbeat Act is that it restricts a person's right to healthcare access. More specifically, restricting abortion access limits the healthcare options a pregnant person can utilize and put them at adverse physical risks and even be potentially fatal. According to researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder, if abortion is banned through the United States, the overall of maternal deaths would rise by 24%. With Black women projected to see a 39% increase. As you can see from the graph, Texas overall and historically has a higher maternal mortality rate compared to the national average. Thus, according to the research from the University of Colorado Boulder, these rates would increase with restricting the access to abortion. In another longitudinal study, research showed that women who are denied abortion care are more likely to experience poorer health outcomes, including gestational diabetes and gestational hypertension, itself a contributor to eclampsia, for which abortion is one option for treatment, meaning bans are also overwhelmingly likely to worsen morbidity rates. Not only does not having access to an abortion put people at risk physically, but mentally as well. A common argument against abortion access is that the procedure causes adverse mental health effects on women after the procedure. However, according to longitudinal research that compared adverse mental health effects between those who gave birth to those who got an abortion or were denied one, those denied access to an abortion suffered with lower self-esteem, anxiety, and lower life satisfaction. The solution, which I had mentioned before, to this problem is to allow access to abortion after 6 weeks. More specifically, abortion should be allowed until a fetus becomes viable, which is around 24 to 28 weeks after conception. The most common criticism of allowing abortion until a fetus becomes viable is that the fetus has personhood at conception. Specifically, the Texas Heartbeat Act grants personhood to a fetus at the first heartbeat, which is typically seen at 6 weeks. Thus, abortion is akin to murder, which is not morally permissible. The problem with this argument is that the question whether or not a fetus has personhood is a moral or philosophical argument, thus has to be argued as such. In response to the criticism that a fetus is a person, so abortion would be murder, is that I believe that the fetus is not a person. Specifically, in Mary Ann Warren's On the Moral and Legal Status of Abortion, she asserts that there are 5 characteristics of personhood. First is consciousness or awareness. Secondly is reasoning, or the capacity to solve new complex problems. Thirdly is self-motivated activity or free will. Fourthly is language, or the capacity to communicate on indefinitely many topics. Lastly is self-awareness, or the ability to think about your own thoughts. Warren argues that for something to be considered a person, it must meet these characteristics to a significant and substantial degree. She also claims that with this criteria, a fetus does not meet these characteristics at a substantial degree that would grant them personhood. This is morally relevant to the permissibility of abortion because the pro-life argument relies on the fetus being a person, and it would be morally impermissible to kill a person. However, I believe that a fetus is not a person. Thus, it is morally permissible for a pregnant person to receive an abortion. One of the only pieces of information that could make me change my opinion on having abortion access in Texas is a possibility of an artificial womb or ectogestation. Ectogestation is when the fetus continues gestation in an ex utero environment or in an artificial womb. Currently, ectogestation is not possible, but there is some research advancing this field that can make ectogestation viable in the future. The reason why ectogestation could make me change my stance on abortion access is because it solves the issue with the right to autonomy and the right to healthcare access. Firstly, it solves the issue of the right to autonomy of the pregnant person and the right to life for the fetus. By having the option of an artificial womb to continue the gestation of a fetus, the right of autonomy is granted to the pregnant person, since the fetus does not need to use their womb to continue gestation. It also solves the issue of the right to healthcare access by giving the pregnant person another option of healthcare. It also eliminates adverse physical and mental health effects that happen when a pregnant person is forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy to term. Overall, the most important issue for Texas is abortion access, specifically the Texas Heartbeat Act, since it directly inflicts upon a person's right to autonomy, the right to healthcare access, and put people at adverse physical and mental health risks. We all deserve the ability to make a choice on what happens to our body and the healthcare we receive.